There were times we were friends, but times I was so cruel. Each night I'd ask for you to watch me as I sleep. I was so afraid of the night. You seemed to move through the places that I feared. You lived inside my world so softly, protected only by the kindness of your nature. You are my sister, and I love you. May all of your dreams come true. You are my sister, and I love you. May all of your dreams come true. We felt so differently then, so similar over the years. The way we laughed, the way we experienced pain. So many memories, there's nothing left to gain from remembering faces and worlds no one else will ever know. You are my sister, and I.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today as we gather for our weekly chapel. Welcome to those who are joining us in person and online. Today we gather for Transgender Day of Remembrance. The Transgender Day of Remembrance was set aside to memorialize those who were killed due to anti-transgender hatred or prejudice. This event is held in November to honor Rita Hester, whose murder on November 28, 1998, kicked off the Remembering Our Dead web project and a San Francisco candlelight vigil in 1999. Rita Hester's murder, like most anti-transgender murder cases, has yet to be solved. Although not every person represented during the Day of Remembrance self-identified as transgender, that is, a transsexual, cross-dresser, or otherwise gender variant, each was a victim of violence based on bias against transgender people. We live in times more sensitive than ever to hatred-based violence, especially since the events of September 11th. Even now, the deaths of those based on anti-transgender hatred or prejudice are largely ignored. Over the last decade, more than one person per month has died due to transgender-based hatred or prejudice, regardless of any other factors in their lives. This trend shows no sign of abating. The Transgender Day of Remembrance serves several purposes. It raises public awareness of hate crimes against transgender people, an action that current media doesn't perform. Day of Remembrance publicly mourns and honors the lives of our brothers and sisters who might otherwise be forgotten. Through the vigil, we express love and respect for our people in the face of national indifference and hatred. Day of Remembrance reminds non-transgender people that we are their sons, daughters, parents, friends, and lovers. Day of Remembrance gives our allies a chance to step forward with us and stand in vigil, memorializing those of us who've died by anti-transgender violence.
The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet, dipped both hands into holy water, traced the Trinity across my chest, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. I asked Jesus to fix me. And when he did not answer, I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn inside, my mouth would dissolve like sugar on tongue, but shame lingered as an aftertaste. In an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity, my mother told me of the miracle I was, said I could grow up to be anything I want. I decided to be a boy. It was cute. I had snapback, toothless grin, used skin knees as street cred, played hide and seek with what was left of my girl. I was it, the winner to a game the other kids couldn't play. I was the mystery of an anatomy, a question asked but not answered, tight roping between awkward boy and apologetic girl. And when I turned 12, the boy phase wasn't deemed cute anymore. It was met with nostalgic aunts who missed seeing my knees in the shadow of skirts, who reminded me that my kind of attitude would never bring a husband home, that I exist for heterosexual marriage and childbearing, and I swallowed their insults along with their slurs. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet. The kids at my school opened it without my permission, called me by a name I did not recognize, said lesbian, but I was more boy than girl, more Ken than Barbie. It had nothing to do with hating my body. I just love it enough to let it go. I treat it like a house, and when your house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. You make it comfortable enough to house all your insides. You make it pretty enough to invite guests over. You make the floorboards strong enough to stand on. My mother fears I have named myself after fading things. As she counts the echoes left behind by Maya Hall, Leela Alcon, Blake Brockington, she fears that I'll die without a whisper, that I will turn into what a shame conversations at the bus stop. She claims I've turned myself into a mausoleum, that I am walking casket. News headlines has turned my identity into a spectacle. Bruce Jenner on everyone's lips, while the brutality of living in this body becomes an asterisk at the bottom of equality pages. No one ever thinks of us as human, because we are more ghost than flesh, because people fear that my gender expression is a trick, that it exists to be perverse, that it ensnares them without their consent, that my body is a feast for their eyes and hands, and once they have fed off my queer, they'll regurgitate all the parts they did not like. They'll put me back into the closet, hang me with all their other skeletons. I will be the best attraction. Can you see how easy it is to talk people into coffins, to misspell their names on gravestones, and people still wonder while there are boys rotting their girl away in high school hallways. They're afraid of becoming another hashtag in a second, afraid of classroom discussions becoming like Judgment Day. And now, oncoming traffic is embracing more transgender children than parents. I wonder how long it will be before the trans suicide notes start to feel redundant, before we realize that our bodies become lessons about sin way before we learn how to love them. Like God didn't save all this breath and mercy. Like my blood is not the wine that washed over Jesus' feet. My prayers are now getting stuck in my throat. Maybe I am finally fixed. Maybe I just don't care. Maybe God finally listened to my prayers. Thank you.
How long, O God, how long will transgender people suffer shame and loss because of who we are? How long must we bear pain in our souls and have sorrow in our hearts all day long? How long should we have enemies who persecute us, ridicule us, and gloat over us?
Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death, and my enemy will say, I have prevailed.
Why do you stand far off, hiding yourself in times of trouble, in fear the violent attack the vulnerable? Let them be caught in the schemes their hearts have devised. In confusion and disturbance, the oppressor said, "There is no God who cares for the meek. No God will find me out." Their mouths are filled with cursing and deceit and oppression. They sit in ambush, in stealth. They murder the innocent. The helpless fall by their might. They think, God has forgotten the drag queens, the cross-dressers, the transgender man, transgender woman, transgender children and youth, transgender queer people and intersex individuals. God is looking the other way that will never see this. Wake up, O God. O God, lift up your hand. Do not forget the oppressed.
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak, and he taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed for those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Consider and answer me, O Lord, my God. Let us join together. Why do murderers rage and fearful people plot in vain? Those in power and those who long for power conspire against the precious anointed of the Lord. In heaven, God laughs at their presumptions. I will tell you the decree of the living. Mighty God, who has said to me, "You are my child. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the earth itself
dwell in the midst."
Okay, I'm on. Hello? Hello? Okay, trying to work out all the screens here. Okay, can everyone hear me all right? Yes. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. The challenges of trying to do this through WebEx. Friends, it's an honor to join you today, and an honor to get to share with you and speak with you. For those who don't know me from classes, my name is Ember Kelly. I am a second-year online MDiv student and a trans woman who has felt called to pursue ministry in the United Church of Christ. So we'll see where that call ends up taking me. It was my hope that I'd make it down to preach in person, but life is busy and complicated, especially with 2 kids under 3 in the house, and my apologies if you hear them crying or screaming in the background. They do have a babysitter. I consider myself fortunate to be able to have the ability to join you through WebEx. It gives me my chance to live out the clergywoman's dream of preaching while wearing sweatpants. And I ask for my experience in classes and from the wisdom of Justin that you all please mute your microphones. And let me know if the streaming starts to go bad or anything. Just raise some hands in there so I know to stop talking and wait till the stream starts working better. So on a serious note, though, writing this sermon was really tough. When I was first asked a couple months ago to think about possibly giving this sermon, I was thinking about what the context would be. I was thinking, it'd be a week after Clinton was elected. I'd be able to be talking about how there was still so much work to do for the trans community. But then this last week with those election results definitely took a toll on my emotional energy for writing a sermon. But at the same time, it also gave me a fresh burst of energy to be a voice calling for radical and revolutionary liberation. So I'd like to dive into a very short scripture for my sermon today. And I'd like to look at it from 2 different translations. Jeremiah 6:14 is the text we're looking at. In the NIV it reads, "They dress the wound of my people as though it were not serious. Peace, peace, they say, when there is no peace." And then in the New English translation, it offers us a little bit more contemporary language, saying, "They offer only superficial help for the harm my people have suffered. They say, everything will be all right, but everything is not all right." This verse has honestly been on my mind a lot through the past couple of years. I've used it in other sermons. I actually mentioned it to my mentor that this has kind of become my go-to social justice verse. Because you know what Americans are obsessed with is peace. Everybody likes to talk about it. We hear this word so much in activism. We have this narrative of inevitable march of progress that will lead to a more peaceful society. We insist in the face of hard times that it gets better. We will reach that promised peace. And we definitely have an obsession with calling people to engage in peaceful protest. For Americans, and especially white American Christians, having this obsession with peace is not an obsession with actual peace, but with using the concept of peace to clobber marginalized people into submission to accepting their oppression. I think about in my own life as a trans woman and activist, hearing politicians and LGBT political organizations telling trans people to be patient about pushing for protections, to stop raising a fuss, to be peaceful. They'll work on it when society was ready for it. Then we reached, in the last few years, what was supposedly a transgender tipping point. And remember, that was actually announced even before the big deal of Caitlyn Jenner coming out. And suddenly, LGBT organizations were looking for something new to fight for after the Supreme Court ruling on marriage equality. Trans folks were finally going to get their turn for progress. Peace, peace, we were told. It's only a matter of time until we make some real legal progress. And you know what? As someone that had been doing activism in the trans community for a couple of years, I was really excited and hopeful about that. Until I realized that it wasn't a real peace that they were bringing the trans community. It was only for those who would be willing to be normal and be respectable. It was a peace for middle and upper class white trans folks. And in fact, this supposed peace, this tipping point, has led to back-to-back years of the worst numbers of known murders of trans folks in the United States. 21 last year and 24 this year, with the majority of them being trans and gender nonconforming people of color. And that's only the ones that are getting reported properly. It turns out that there wasn't any real peace, because real peace means dismantling and eliminating systems of oppression, not just patching over a broken system. As the great theologian Taylor Swift once sang, "Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes." And now we're faced with this vice president who believes that in conversion therapy for LGBT folks, and a president who's appointing white nationalists to his cabinet. Suddenly, this progress that we supposedly had made looks even more tenuous. Did we actually achieve any peace? Has it truly gotten better? Or was it that the peace we were promised was only for those privileged and respectable enough to be allowed in? It turns out there can't be real liberation for any of us without real liberation for all of us. What good is a transgender tipping point if I can still get let go from a job because people were uncomfortable around transgender people? What good are employment protections if trans people don't have the money to get the education needed to qualify for those jobs? What good is progress for the trans community if undocumented trans siblings are getting deported at record numbers under a Democratic president and will likely face even worse under our new president? Is it getting better if trans people of color are facing high rates of hate crimes while also dealing with a white LGBT community unwilling to confront its own white supremacy? What good is it if our indigenous two-spirited siblings have been and continue to be robbed of their lands and face genocide by colonization? What good are these LGBT-friendly corporations if they're destroying communities that they work in through exploitation of people and resources? True freedom can only be where there is no exploitation and oppression of one person by another. And liberation must mean liberation for all. And only then, with this liberation for all, can we start to think about saying, peace, peace. So how do we, as people concerned for justice, who strive for this real peace, for liberation, how do we make this a reality? You know, ideas are good. Dreaming for a better world is a critical part of this, but the ideas have to be matched by an effort to make material change in the world. It's so easy to get caught up in knowing all the right words and ideas. We all like to talk about intersectional activism, but putting that into practice is much more difficult. Good theory and good practice go hand in hand. How can we be these people of revolutionary love and peace? How can we be people who seek to fight against oppressors and exploiters in order to bring liberation? It's not easy. We want easy answers. It'd be really nice if I could give you a nice 10-point list of all the things that you could do to be good allies to the trans community, but it's just not that easy. Being good allies is more than just a label that you can give yourself. The best first step, I think, is to commit yourself to listening. Don't talk over trans folks and tell us what our experiences are. Listen to us. Listen to our stories. Let us speak for ourselves and don't assume that there is some universal trans experience. I also think about this desire to make trans people part of the normal part of society. Perhaps we need to rethink about this idea of being respectable. As long as we're pushing for a group of people to become normal, someone will fall outside of that. If we're pushing for respectability, it only ends up harming others. And I think about that. I think about my own experiences in activism, especially when I was just starting. I knew about these ideas like intersectionality, but in reality, I was pushing for respectability. And in doing so, I ended up building a very white and a very respectable trans activism that left out many important voices in the community. I've learned since a little bit that I must do better. I learned that I needed to do better at listening. And daily I remind myself that I can and must do better. As I think about how to achieve this liberation for all people, I realize that our theology must also be radically reshaped. I think about everybody likes to be called open and affirming, or have these open and affirming theologies, but often they're just open. You know, they'll let LGBT people come to the table, they'll let LGBT people come to the church, but people aren't willing to actually affirm that these diverse voices are an important part of the faith communities and to the work of doing theology. Are faith communities and theologies just trying to make more room at a table that is oppressive? Or are we truly seeking liberation by dismantling that oppressive table and working to build a new one together? We better get to work on dismantling oppression because, honestly, I'm tired of people telling me, peace, peace, when there is no peace. Because when 24 trans people were murdered this last year, with likely even more unreported, and even more than that lost to suicide, that's not peace. When myself and so many others are afraid to use public restrooms for fear of harassment, that's not peace. When trans people are posting all about how they're fearing for their lives under our next president, that's not peace. We have to do better. We must do better. I remember that God tells Cain that Abel's blood cried out from the ground. Surely the blood of those trans siblings that we have lost cries out to God as well. Will we also hear that cry and respond? I really hope that we will. Amen.
We now come to a time of reflection as we say the names and light candles in remembrance of transgender individuals who have lost their lives to violence this year. Monica Luera, 43 years old, Austin, Texas, died January 22nd. Jasmine Sierra, 52 years old, Bakersville, California, died January 22nd. Caden Clark, Mesa, Arizona, killed February 4th. Veronica Banks, Cano of San Antonio, Texas, February 19th. Maya Young, 25 years old, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, February 2nd. DeMarcus Stansberry, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, February 27th, 30 years old. Kendari Candice Johnson, Burlington, Iowa, March 2nd, 16 years old. Courtney Davia Dawson, Yoakum, Los Angeles, California, March 23rd, 32 years old. Shantae Isaac, Houston, Texas, April 10th, 34 years old. Kiana Blakeney, Rockville, Maryland, May 1st, 22 years old. Tyrese Reese Walker, 32 years old, from Wichita, Kansas, May 1st. Mercedes Successful, 32 years old, Haines City, Florida, May 15th. Amos Bede, Burlington, Vermont, 38 years old, May 22nd. Devin Goddess Diamond, 22 years old, New Orleans, Louisiana, June 5th. Daniqua Dodds, Washington, D.C., July 4th, 22 years old. Dee Wiggum, 36 years old, St. Martin, Mississippi, July 23rd. Sky Maccabee, Cleveland, Ohio, July 30th, 26 years old. Erica Tiarina, 36 years old, El Paso, Texas, August 8th. Raylan Thomas, Columbus, Ohio, August 10th, 28 years old. Lexi Cyronen, Waterville, Maine, September 6th, 43 years old. TT Safor, Chicago, Illinois, September 11th, 26 years old. Crystal Edmonds, Baltimore, Maryland, September 16th, 32 years old. Jazz Alford, North Carolina, September 23rd, 30 years old. Brandy Bledsoe, Cleveland, Ohio, October 12th, 32 years old. Simon Sierra Bush, Boise, Idaho, October 22nd, 18 years old. Noonie Norwood, Richmond, Virginia, November 5th, 30 years old. And now Dirk Hamilton will lead us in a prayer for Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Dear God, why are people so threatened by those of us who are transgender? How could we ever so dehumanize and demonize the other that we would feel compelled and justified to harm them? Transgender people are ridiculed, harassed, beaten, and even killed just for being different. Have we not evolved beyond such violent intolerance? Is this who we really are as a species? How can there be so much hate, ignorance, fear, and rage just because someone's reality doesn't match our expectations of them? And why should we expect anything anyway? So God, we spend this moment to honor those brave transgender people who lost their lives simply because they found the courage to live their truth. We spend this morning hoping those who mourn the loss of their transgender loved ones will find comfort. We spend this moment praying for healing for our violent and all too often hate-filled world. We spend this moment asking for forgiveness for the times that we have done something that made things worse or failed to do something that might have made things better for transgender people. We spend this moment wishing for a world where every person can live safely with dignity and pride in harmony with all other. When apathy, ignorance, privilege, or prejudice hurts others, may we stand up and speak out and be agents of positive change in our world. And on this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we affirm that all victims of hate and violence live on in your heart, where there is only goodness, love, and light. Amen.
Divine Beloved, you are spirit, you are truth. We are made of flesh, of bone, of blood, and of spirit. We are created in your image. We reflect your brilliant and beautiful diversity. That brilliant and beautiful diversity is hated and violated, tortured and killed, because it does not fit the gender mold of the masses. When we live across gender, we are hated, abused, and killed. Today, we remember our siblings, their flesh, their bones, their blood, and their spirits. Today, we ask for forgiveness for our complicity with this violence through silence, nervous laughter, thoughtless disregard, or baseless fear of our siblings who are beautifully defy society's binary gender construction. Forgive us, awaken us, remind us, transform us as we go forth from this place. Amen.
Combine the right things, and something amazing happens. That's our